In 1990, Strategic Simulations Incorporated, best known for their Dungeons & Dragons Gold Box games, released a tactical RPG unlike anything else of its time. A sci-fi adventure set across the solar system, the story of rebellion, corporate tyranny, and a weapon that could destroy the Earth. This is Buck Rogers' Countdown to Doomsday, the Gold Box experiment that shouldn't have worked, but somehow did. Before we dive into Countdown to Doomsday, we need to answer a very important question. Why does this game even exist? Because, let's be honest, in 1990, nobody was walking into a game shop thinking, you know what we need? A Buck Rogers RPG. Here's the deal. Back in the late 80s, TSR, the company behind Dungeons & Dragons, also happened to own the rights to Buck Rogers. And like anybody sitting on a character whose popularity peaked before sliced bread, they thought, we can totally reboot this. So TSR created a brand new sci-fi universe called 25th Century. New world building, new lore, new tabletop RPG system, the whole package. And since they were already working with SSI on the Gold Box D&D games, they basically said, hey SSI, want to take your fantasy engine, remove the dragons, add some laser pistols, and make Buck Rogers cool again? And SSI, being absolute champs, said, sure, how hard could reinventing a 70-year-old pulp hero be? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how we ended up with a full-blown tactical sci-fi RPG starring Buck Rogers, which still somehow happens to be one of the more interesting CRPG experiments of the early 90s. So, what kind of future does Countdown to Doomsday drop you into? Well, it's the 25th century, and things are looking a little rough for Team Humanity. Earth's been through several centuries of bad decisions, and now mostly serves as the galaxy's equivalent of that friend's house that nobody visits. Out in space, things are only slightly better. Mars, Venus, Mercury, and various asteroids have all been colonised. People have adapted to living there, which is a nice way of saying humans come in more flavours now. And running the show is RAM, the Russo-American Mercantile. It's a mega corporation that woke up one morning and decided they wanted to be a full-blown empire. They've got troops, fleets, bases, and the general vibe of a boss who schedules meetings at 4:59 PM. Opposing them is Neo, the New Earth Organization, a group trying to free Earth and stop RAM from treating the solar system like their personal Amazon fulfillment center. And your job? Join the rebellion, annoy RAM at every possible opportunity, and try not to get killed. Character creation in Countdown to Doomsday is where the game politely invites you to make 6 people who will immediately regret signing up for this mission. You pick from several sci-fi friendly origins: Terrans, Martians, Venusians, Mercurians, Tinkers, and Desert Runners. No elves, no dwarves, just humans who have adapted to different environments. Oh, and plus there's a race of short, genius engineers who probably need OSHA supervision. And then you choose classes from warrior, rogue, medic, rocket jock, and engineers. These are basically the sci-fi equivalents of fighters, thieves, clerics, pilots, and fix-it people, I guess. The game uses skills instead of magic. Things like piloting, medical treatment, repairing equipment, hacking, and other extremely practical abilities you'd want on a spaceship if it starts making funny noises. It's simple, it's flexible, and it guarantees one thing: you will absolutely forget which character is your medic at the worst possible moment. The game starts you off at a Neo base, where your shiny new recruits are probably expecting a tour, maybe a welcome packet, possibly a free t-shirt. Instead, RAM shows up and tries to blow the place up. Your first mission is basically, congratulations on joining the rebellion. Now defend the base before we all explode. You fight off RAM troops, activate some defences, and try not to notice that your characters have been on the job for about 12 seconds. It's a firm reminder that this universe is not messing around. After surviving orientation by fire, Neo sends you into space, and surprise, you immediately run into a derelict ship drifting quietly in the void, which is always a good sign in science fiction, right? You board it and find out the crew has been wiped out by genetically engineered creatures called Jennies or Genies. I could never figure it out. These things are basically what happens when someone looks at a lab form and checks every box labeled, this is definitely a bad idea, but do it anyway. You do fight through the investigation and have some itchy legs along the way, and eventually you'll meet a digital personality named Scott.DOS, an AI who's somehow still cheerful despite living on a ship full of corpses. After cleaning the place out, You salvage the ship, rename it because nobody wants to pilot a murder boat, and bring it back to Neo as your new ride. Congratulations, you now own a slightly haunted starship. As your team starts doing important rebel things, you'll gradually discover that Ram is working on something big, and by big I mean a literal Doomsday laser. This isn't just any giant laser, this is the kind of laser that says, we could destroy a planet, but let's start with something smaller just to show we're serious. Star Wars, here's looking at you. You travel across various planets and asteroids trying to piece together Ram's plan. On Mars, you infiltrate the Ram stronghold at Gradivus Mons. In the asteroid belt, you deal with pirates. And at some point you rescue Buck Rogers himself, who is exactly as competent as the box art claims. Piece by piece, you uncover the plot. Ram has a giant laser, it's aimed at Earth, and they plan to press the ruin everything button unless you stop them. Alright, before we get on to how the game actually ends, let's talk about what you actually do in Buck Rogers, besides getting shot at by every corporate goon in the solar system. First up, space travel. This is where you, your crew, and your slightly used spaceship cruise around the solar system like it's one big interplanetary road trip. You hop from planet to planet using a nice, tidy solar system map. And whilst you're out there sightseeing, the game likes to remind you that space is dangerous. Sometimes you'll run into another ship and, surprise, they want to kill you. So the game politely switches to ship-to-ship combat where both vessels will trade shots until one of them stops existing. Welcome to outer space, population, things that want you dead. When you actually do land somewhere, the game shifts gears again. Now you're exploring planets, asteroids, bases, tunnels, basically anywhere Ram has set up shop and made questionable life choices. The game uses the familiar gold box exploration setup. On PC, it's a first-person grid view where you're inside a structure, and sometimes, especially on the Genesis version, it's an overhead map. You move one square at a time, poke around rooms, read text descriptions, and occasionally stumble into something that screams, plot event, or please leave immediately. There's no jumping, no real-time action, just good old-fashioned, step-by-step adventure tourism. And then we have tactical combat, the part where things get spicy. You've already seen it a few times in this video, and just like in other gold box games, the battlefield appears as a grid, your characters take turns, and everyone tries very hard not to get vaporized. But this time, forget your swords and fireballs, you're packing laser pistols, rocket launchers, grenades, and other gadgets. Enemies include ram soldiers, robots, genetically engineered creatures, basically anything that fits the theme of, oops, science went too far. There's no spells, no magic, unless you count not dying as kind of a miracle. So that's the gameplay loop. Fly through space, get shot at. Land somewhere, get shot at. Explore until something terrible happens, get shot at. Fight your way out on a grid, and repeat. It's classical gold box gameplay, just with more lasers, more space travel, and way more opportunities to get ambushed by robots. So, back to the plot. The whole story has been building up to your assault on Ram's installation near Mercury, which is where they're powering and controlling their Doomsday laser. This mission is classic RPG escalation. More enemies, tougher enemies, better gear, tighter hallways, and the constant feeling that everything in the room wants you gone. You fight your way through Ram troops and robots, reach the laser control center, and shut the whole thing down before Earth comes a giant, smoking space crater. And naturally, after you've done that, the base starts exploding, because no evil facility in fiction has ever passed a fire inspection, obviously. You escape just in time, well, if you do. This is proof that your squad is now officially qualified to survive absolutely ridiculous situations. So, what did people actually think of this game? When Countdown to Doomsday launched in 1990, critics actually liked it. It was different, ambitious, and it proved the gold box engine could handle laser pistols just as well as longswords. It never became a mainstream smash hit though, as Buck Rogers wasn't exactly trending, but it built a loyal following, loyal enough that SSI did release a fairly doomed sequel, Matrix Cubed, in 1992. Today, Countdown to Doomsday is remembered as one of the oddest, boldest experiments of the gold box era, the game that traded dragons for starships and somehow pulled it off. So, why would you play this today? Because it's weird, charming, and genuinely creative. It blends tactical combat, retro sci-fi, and a whole lot of personality. It gives you a spaceship, a rebellion, and a giant evil laser to stop. What more could you want? If you love old school RPGs, tactical combat, or niche sci-fi worlds, Countdown to Doomsday is absolutely worth rediscovering. Thanks for joining me on this retrospective of Buck Rogers' Countdown to Doomsday. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please hit like and subscribe, it helps the algorithm. And of course tell me in the comments, did you actually play this game? And if you like space, maybe hop over and join me on Twitch. We're currently playing No Man's Sky, blowing some stuff up and pirating away. Being our own personal Buck Rogers.